Alright guys, UFC 252 is coming up, and in the main event, we have the final fight of one of the promotion's greatest trilogies with the two-time heavyweight champion, Stipe Miocic, taking on the former two-division champ, Daniel Cormier.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say John Jones and Daniel Cormier, but alright.
In many of the fans' minds, these fighters are two of the greatest heavyweights in the sport's history, and definitely two of the best heavyweights in UFC history.
I think Tim Sylvia has something to say about that, Eric. The disrespect coming out of your mouth.
And with both men having a win over each other in championship fights, this bout will determine exactly who the greatest in the division is. For Stipe, this fight is about putting all doubts about his dominance to rest and solidifying himself as the true champion. For Cormier, this will possibly be the last fight of his illustrious MMA career, with the win further solidifying himself as not just one of the best heavyweights, but also one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time.
To never beat John Jones.
How excited are you for this fight?
I'll watch it, I guess.
Alright, now looking at the stats, we have Stipe Miocic coming in at 6 feet 5 inches tall with an 80-inch reach. We have Daniel Cormier coming in at 5 feet 11 inches tall with a 72.5-inch reach. So Stipe will have a significant height and reach advantage over Cormier. Stipe Miocic is one of the sharpest and most technical fighters we've seen in the heavyweight division. He has excellent boxing with a devastating jab and straight right combination that he's put a number of opponents out with. He's also great at applying forward pressure by overwhelming his opponents with volume and battering them against the fence, and also great at countering pressure with precise and accurate counter punches as well as excellent head movement. Stipe has an NCAA Division I wrestling background that translates very well into his MMA game, with excellent takedowns, great top control, and devastating ground and pound. Daniel Cormier is one of the most well-rounded and dominant fighters in MMA history. He is an Olympic wrestling bronze medalist and carries his elite wrestling over into MMA extremely well. He has some of the best single-leg takedowns and slams that we've seen in the sport. On the ground, he has an overbearing top game with devastating ground and pound. In the stand-up department, Cormier has great boxing and is very good at finding his way inside the pocket to land devastating hooks, as well as pulling his opponents into his clinch for the uppercuts, all to make up for what he lacks in reach. He also has a kicking game that shouldn't be underestimated, with a vicious right head kick. Alright, now looking at their first fight, Stipe would look to use the size to press Cormier against the fence while landing strikes and even trying to out-wrestle him, but Cormier was able to muscle his way out and bring the fight back to the center of the cage. Stipe would continue to chase Cormier down and start landing some heavy combinations, but Cormier would answer back with some heavy strikes of his own. It should be noted that Cormier would hit Stipe with a nasty eye poke around this point of the fight that the ref would see and give Stipe a break for. Stipe continued to press forward toward Cormier and would end up in his clinch with Cormier landing a big right hook right on Stipe's chin, knocking him out and ending the fight.
I remember feeling bad for him when he got knocked out and he woke up. He was like, what happened? And he was all upset. No! He was all frustrated and mad. I feel sorry for him.
He even pushed the ref.
He did push the ref. Can't really blame Stipe. I mean, that man has two jobs. He's a firefighter and he's a UFC fighter. You gotta dedicate yourself to one or the other, or one is gonna lack. That's all I'm saying. Dana, DW, let's go ahead and show some Stipe a little bit of love with the moolah, so he can quit one of the jobs.
While the eye poke did cause controversy, I believe Stipe's biggest mistake here was chasing Cormier down rather than using his range to outbox Cormier from the outside. Cormier's striking is best at close range, and Stipe was closing the distance for him, giving him all the advantage that he didn't have to work for. Alright, now looking at the second fight, Stipe would not begin chasing Cormier early like he did in the first, but Cormier had no problem closing the distance himself, constantly hitting Stipe with leg kicks and feigning takedowns in order to set up the strikes up top. At midpoint of the first round, Cormier would land a big takedown and would control Stipe from top position, eventually transitioning to side control and hitting Stipe with ground and pound to the end of the round. In the second round, Cormier would completely abandon his wrestling game and look to chase Stipe down by plotting forward and hand-fighting with Stipe while landing some jabs and right hooks when he found the openings. While he did land some heavy shots and got the better of the exchanges, Stipe hung in there and landed some counter shots of his own, turning this fight into a back-and-forth brawl. Also important to note, Cormier would again poke Stipe in the eye, with the ref not seeing what happened and not giving Stipe any break to recover. The third round would look more or less the same, with Cormier continuing to plot forward at Stipe, despite his corner advising against it, and looking to land heavy strikes while disregarding Stipe's counter shots. Stipe would get in some better offense early on, and even land a takedown, but was ultimately overwhelmed by Cormier's volume, with both fighters appearing to tire out. Round 4 would open up with Stipe beginning to walk Cormier down, landing strikes, with Cormier firing back, but appearing to fade more and more as the fight went on. At midpoint of the round, Stipe would land 2 left hooks to Cormier's body that made Cormier wince. From there on, Stipe would walk Cormier down, landing a series of hooks to the body. Although Cormier would fire back with some heavy counter shots, Stipe would continue to break Cormier down, eventually landing a body shot that backed Cormier up toward the fence, where Stipe would land a big right hook on Cormier's chin that would completely stun him, and followed up with a flurry, forcing the ref to stop the fight. Much like with Stipe in the first, it appeared that Cormier made a mistake by abandoning his wrestling and overzealously chasing Stipe down while trying to rush the knockout. However, I believe Cormier abandoned his wrestling and began trying to finish the fight as quick as possible as a result of getting tired, as Stipe is the biggest opponent that Cormier has faced in the UFC and also has the best defensive wrestling. So I believe that taking him down in that first round took more energy away from him than he was comfortable with.
His gas tank was empty. He didn't even look like he trained for the second fight. He looked fatter than the first fight. Yeah, I guarantee you he didn't go to the gym all that much. He stayed at home. He got the knockout in the first round of the first fight.
Yeah.
Got the knockout so easily. He's like, this heavyweight division is a joke. I gotta train for nothing. Second fight, didn't train, didn't do anything, and his gas tank just ran out. That was it.
Looking into how this final fight between the two will possibly go, it's a very hard one to call because there's no telling how either of them are going to approach this third fight. While both of them seem just about evenly matched on the feet, I believe that Cormier can outstrike Stipe for the majority of the fight if he continues what he did in the first round, minus the takedown. I think Cormier needs to attack the legs of Stipe while feigning takedown attempts to set up the big right hands over the top, and only shoot in should he have a clear opening. He also needs to pace himself. Stipe didn't seem to know how to manage distance in that first round, and only started to land cleanly later in the fight when Cormier began to walk him down with his hands low and without any head movement.
I gotta see more eye pokes, both eyes, not just one.
He may want a quick knockout, but he can't underestimate Stipe's durability and power again, or else the tide will begin to turn in Stipe's favor like it did in their last bout. He has to stay patient and methodical from start to finish. For Stipe, I believe that he needs to be able to find a range that he could strike at without being in danger of Cormier's countershots. Stipe has a whole 7-inch reach on Cormier, but he still seems to want to fight him right in the pocket where Cormier is most dangerous. I believe he needs to measure distance with his jab while looking for the big right straight or looking to come in with quick combinations, and also back out or circle away as Cormier tries to come in, basically stick and move and strike from the outside. I also think he should look to rip the body more than anything else and look to tire Cormier out sooner than later. If he's going to come in and close the distance with Cormier, it should only be to clinch with him and press him up against the fence to try to wear him down with grappling and dirty boxing against the fence. But he can't give Cormier any space to strike back. As far as a prediction for this fight, I have to say that while I do believe that Cormier has the better game overall and has everything it takes to beat Stipe stylistically, it does appear to me that age is finally catching up with him and that he simply cannot keep the same pressure and heavy pace that he used to. While I think that he may be able to pace himself better in this fight than he did in the last, I believe that Stipe now knows Cormier's gas tank is limited and he'll look to exploit that by attacking Cormier's body. I think this fight is going to be an all-out war and another possible fight of the year candidate, but I ultimately see Stipe outlasting Cormier in the later rounds, earning another TKO finish either in the 4th or 5th round to solidify himself as the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Alright, now one big factor about this fight that I failed to mention is that this event is taking place at the UFC Apex with the smaller octagon. I believe this will favor Cormier, and Stipe seems to prefer the bigger octagon from what he said in recent interviews.
Yeah, he was crying about it.
But I think it will only favor Cormier if he can get an early finish. How do you see it?
Oh no, huge advantage for DC. But I mean, it is what it is. Stop crying about it, get it done. That's what my supervisor always tells me.
I did say that Stipe should try to stick and move a little more, but the smaller cage is going to make that a lot harder. Stipe did show that he can take the heat in that second fight, so I still think that he has this as long as he stays out of DC's clinch. Another big question going into this one is how much are the refs going to be looking out for the eye pokes? Cormier's eye poke in the first fight could have very well had an effect on the outcome of that fight.
I'll argue that it did. Yeah.
And the eye poke in the second caused Stipe to need surgery. Do you think the refs are going to be more strict about it in this one?
No, I don't think so. It's in the past. I'm all about the future, baby. That's his mindset. That should be your mindset too.
I do hope whoever's reffing this fight makes sure that DC isn't fighting with his fingers extended. For one, I don't want there to be any controversy regarding this fight. And two, Stipe should not have to worry about getting his eyes permanently damaged while he's competing for his legacy. I don't want to accuse DC of being a dirty fighter, but I will say that his recklessness should not be tolerated in this one. Alright, one last question I have is on Cormier's age and motivation in this one. He said in multiple interviews that this will be his last fight, and given how long he's been competing in both MMA and wrestling, it's hard to be skeptical about that. Should this fight get as tough and as grueling as I think it could possibly be, will Cormier's desire to leave as champion push him through, or will he just be ready to end it, already having accomplished more than most fighters can ever dream of?
He's taking this fight very seriously because those losses to John Jones are going to leave a nasty taste in his mouth. He wants to get a win to kind of erase it or negate that. So yeah, no, I think he's going to try his damnedest to win this fight.
This is a big legacy fight, but I would say it's even more important for Daniel Cormier. Not a whole lot of fighters can say that they retired as champion. Do you think this could possibly be Stipe's last fight as well? He's just not saying anything.
I think so. I think he might be getting burnt out on fighting. You kind of hear his tone in his voice during the post-fight interviews. I don't think he really enjoys it all too much.
Nor does he feel appreciated.
No. So I think it might be his last fight.
How exciting do you think this fight is going to be?
It's not going to be a boring fight whatsoever. Stipe he's the kind of guy who's just always going to give 110% every single time. He's not lazy. I'm not saying DC is lazy. DC in the second fight, I don't think he took it seriously. He's going to take it serious now. This fight is very important to him that he gets the win and retires as champion, just to kind of keep people's minds off those losses against John Jones.
So who you taking?
Oh, DC. I got DC.
I gotta say, I disagree that he didn't take that fight seriously.
Did you not see his gut? He did not have the same gut. Unless he wore tighter shorts, because that gut looked a little bigger. It might have been just me. But that gut looked a little bigger. He looked a little flabbier.
I do think he burnt himself out in that first round. I don't think he's going to be making the same mistake in this third one. But I think as the fight goes on, he will eventually wear out, if my prediction about his age is true, and Stipe will take over. I think it's going to be an exciting fight, just as you mentioned.
No, it is. It's going to be a barn burner.
All right, guys, in the end, I think it's safe to say that a fight as important to the sport as this one should not be missed. Rivalries are common in any combat sport or any sport in general, but it's rare that we see one as competitive as this. And with it being the final fight between two accomplished legends, it's bound to be an epic showcase for the ages. We thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
I'm ready to just go fight. I'm ready to go fight this dude and go put this dude in the rearview mirror. That's it. Like, we can fight the small cage. We can fight in the back. We can fight wherever. We can fight wherever. Let's just go get it done and put this 3-year thing behind us. Like, it's been 3 years since Stipe and I have been preparing for each other. So I'm ready to go put this behind me and move forward into my life. And hopefully there are more jobs to come when fighting's done.